Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome to the Messengers in Our Home. Hello dear Kardec Radio listeners, and welcome back to the Messengers in Our Home. Tonight with chapter 39, Work That Never Stops. So we continue to learn how spirits help us during our sleep time and what happens on the spiritual realm. Hello Mackenzie.
Hi Francisca. Hello everyone. Welcome back to another chapter of the Messengers in Our Home.
So before we start, let's elevate our thoughts for our opening prayer. Dear Mother, Father God, Creator of the universe and of our yet small hearts, once again we are united in your name to learn more about the interaction between the spiritual and the material plane. And we thank you for this opportunity of absorbing more and more how important this knowledge is in our lives, how much help we have access to during our sleep time, and how important it is to sleep intelligently. And so, with our heart full of gratitude, we thank you for being in touch with the spiritual teachings and wherever else these teachings are, it doesn't matter. We thank you for our lives, for never giving up on us, for helping us to learn and to grow each day. And we thank you for all the other support mechanisms there are, like prayer, spiritual treatment in the spiritual center or elsewhere, a good conversation with someone, a good book, a message that lifts us up, a podcast. There are so many different ways to reach for the light whenever we need it. So we ask you to please help us to learn to reach for the light in the good and in the bad times, and especially to overcome our own negative tendencies, so that we, little by little, are able to put your teachings into practice, to love you above all else and our neighbors as ourselves. And with your permission, we would like to start our meeting. So be it. So here we are, the reading of chapter 39. Enjoy.
Chapter 39, Work That Never Stops. At dawn, I noticed that Aniceto was welcoming several more friends, with whom he was speaking privately. Our esteemed guide informed us politely that he was in charge of several tasks according to Telesforo's instructions. He was obliged to treat them in a private manner, although he would not hide their main objective from us, which was the active combat against a large group of ignorant discarnate spirits gathered together for evil purposes. While he was engaged in private conversation, we, in turn, were listening to other friends involved with routine spiritual work. The day was now dawning with magnificent splendor. We had the feeling that the night's rain had swept away the darkness from the firmament. Judging by the number of spirit workers who had stayed overnight in the humble little house, I recognized the importance of that service center, so hidden from the eyes of the world. A woman who had approached us exclaimed with feeling,
"May the Lord reward our sister Isabel, granting her strength to endure the temptations on her pathway. Because I came to rest at this loving retreat, I was able to find my poor daughter and stop her from committing suicide. Thanks be to divine providence."
Unable to restrain my desire to learn, I asked, "But how did you find her, my sister?"
"In a dream,"
answered the kindly old lady.
"My Dawa was widowed 3 years ago, and 11 months ago I too left her alone by discarnating. The poor thing couldn't bear her suffering as she should, and she allowed herself to fall into the clutches of malevolent spirits who were plotting her ruin. I approached her during the day, but my efforts were useless. With her mind absorbed in business and material complications, she couldn't feel my influence. I needed to meet her at night. But that was not easy because I'm not spiritually evolved enough to operate alone, and the group I serve couldn't spend an entire night on Earth to help me out. It was then that a friend brought me to this Nosolar auxiliary. I was able to act with the groups involved in its ongoing work and was helped by untiring workers for the good."
"And were you able to achieve your purpose easily?" asked Vicente.
"Thanks be to Jesus,"
answered the woman, showing enormous happiness.
"Now I know my daughter has received my loving suggestions, and I'm sure she will heed my request."
"Listen, my friend," I asked, "are there many Nosolar workshops like this one?"
"From what I've been told, there are quite a few of them in the corporeal realm. They represent other spirit colonies, not only here but also in other cities of Brazil. In these centers, there are always advanced opportunities that are indispensable for outfitting us for the struggle."
At that moment, we were greeted by 2 fellow spirits with whom we had spoken during the night and who had aroused our sincere affinity. "What?" I asked. "Leaving so soon?" "We're going to work," one of them answered. "Tonight, there will be a gospel study, and we have to help our ignorant and suffering brothers and sisters who are capable of coming here." "There's that sort of job too?" I asked, amazed. "Why not, my friend? Jesus himself said centuries ago that the harvest is great. There is work for everyone. And you must realize that this Christian Assistance Workshop has been functioning non-stop for nearly 20 years. But have you yourselves been here since it was first founded?" He quickly explained, "No, there are many like us who do an internship here. Only a few of Isidoro and Isabel's workers have been stationed here since the beginning of the institution. The rest of us do not work here for more than 2 years. A workshop like this one is always an active and holy school, and those who have a spirit of goodwill should not miss out on the chance to learn." "Forgive me for asking so many questions," I replied, "but I'd like to know if you are the only ones with the skills needed for recruiting those who are ignorant and suffering in order for them to be instructed and consoled." "No. Ildegardo and I are assistants for only a few blocks in the city. There are many co-workers in this line of help." Just then, one of the brothers, who seemed to be a member of the place's guidance group, approached and addressed our friend. "Vieira, I suggest that you and Ildegardo observe our doctrinal criterion more carefully. It would be useless to bring vagrant or untrustworthy spirits to this place simply because you feel personally sympathetic toward them. We cannot waste time on sneering and lazy spirits, nor on those who come here with certain intentions of a lower nature. There will be no lack of Jesus' provisions for these people elsewhere. Remember that. It's not a lack of charity. It's an understanding of duty. We have a very serious work to do in the evangelization and aid program, and we cannot misuse what has been granted by our superiors of higher spirituality. Those who accept a commitment are held responsible for it. No matter how much you love a lazy or sarcastic spirit, don't give it any leeway. Help it privately when you have the time and opportunity, but don't drag the group into its problems. Don't forget that there are certain task centers for those who are intentionally deaf and blind. Vieira and his colleague became very pale and didn't say a word. When their calm and alert guide left, Vieira explained, downcast, "We've been justly admonished." And because he saw that we were eager to learn, he respectfully continued. "Unfortunately, Hildegardo and I have some discarnate relatives in distressing spiritual situations. We brought my uncle Hilario and cousin Carlos to the last meeting, even though we knew that because of their disrespect for the divine laws in the inferior environment in which they live, neither of them was prepared for serious reflection. However, they both seemed so eager for renewal that we listened to personal sympathy, forgetting the need for proper preparation. They came with us and sat among the many listeners. But in the middle of the gospel study, they tried to take over Sister Isabel's mediumistic faculties in order to transmit a message of less uplifting content. Sensing our vigilance and surprised by the co-workers of this sanctifying auxiliary, they rebelled and created a great disturbance. If it hadn't been for the magnetic barriers of the guard service, they would have caused very serious harm. The meeting was thus less fruitful because of the great waste of time. Well, naturally, we were held responsible. "My God!" exclaimed Vicente, amazed. "What a new lesson!" "Oh, yes, my friend," replied Vieira, resigned. "Here, we must not misuse love like we do in the corporeal realm. No one is forbidden to help, to want the good, to intercede. We can all assist those we love with the resources that are appropriate. But the word duty has a positive meaning here for those who wish to walk sincerely toward God." And tonight we're talking about chapter 39, Work That Never Stops. Well, we've been talking about work a lot, right? Last chapter was entitled Hard at Work, and now it's the time for work that never stops, which is interesting because naturally for us, when we are incarnated, it is natural, or it is common for us to work, let's say, or to think about work, let's say 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, which would bring us to 40 hours, right? Some people work more, some people work less, some people exaggerate a little bit. So let's say they would work 60 hours because they need the money. But is it this kind of work that we are talking about? If you and we've been following all these studies from the book No Solar, from this book, The Messengers, we understand now, I think, and I suppose, but more than this, I hope, that by now we have understood that when Andre and all these good spirits, they are talking about work, it's not just about the work to get money, but it's any type of activity that I do that has a positive or a constructive meaning. So it is very interesting because, Andre is narrating the whole story. Of course, he is omitting some details because maybe they are not very important for the story, but he doesn't mention that he actively they actively, stopped for a few days to rest. And even when they are resting, they are actively working. They are doing something. What is this something that they are doing? Most of the time, at this moment right now, what they're doing is they are learning, right? They are actively asking questions, trying to learn with the other spirits, trying to learn what the other ones are doing so that they, when it comes their time, they can go out and help and do the same. So, in this sense, we can understand why this is the kind of work that never stops. Because, and we already talked about this as well, when we are sleeping, for example, right, and we are going to have another example in this chapter about this, we are not resting, our body is resting, but we can go out and do something. We talked, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before that we talked a little bit about the intelligent sleep, where we can pray and think about when we go to sleep to, maybe ask the good spirits to take us to a place so that we can learn something. Or maybe that we can visit a hospital. Maybe that we can visit a place where we can work like Andre is doing right now. Or, any type of work that a spirit could do without our body, right? Without me working without my body. Naturally, this can make us a little bit tired, but that's how it is. We are going to have time to rest when we have time to rest. That's what we do here, right? We work, and there will be a time when I need to go and rest, and that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong about it. It's just that we cannot exchange, right, the amount of rest for the amount of work that we need to do. And that's why one of the things about the title of this chapter is Work That Never Stops. Can you imagine if the title of this chapter would be Rest That Never Stops? Meaning that we would be what? Lazy. And lazy is one of the words that maybe can help us understand this chapter. You already heard the reading of the chapter. You already know that there will be a spirit, or there will be two spirits, whom one of the characters, one of the responsibles for the work, call them, right? They call these two spirits of lazy spirits. But we are getting ahead of ourselves here. So it is about work. It is about rest. It is about duty. It is about, naturally, us. What are we doing with our own time? Before we start going deeper in some of these concepts, as this chapter will take us, I would really like to, in my name and in Francisca's name, to thank once again people at Joanna de Angelis Spiritist Society in California. This week and last week we were talking, I mentioned in our program that I was talking to Ana Moreno and to Claudia Robinson, and after we talked, they sent us another message. They sent us an email with some messages from people that are following our studies here in their Spiritist Center. And they just finished listening and studying the book that we finished last year, which was the book No Solar. And they sent us a few messages from different people from the group, and I'm going to read some of them right now. I'm going to read one of them, and probably our next programs, I'll read more of these messages that we got from some of the students at the Joanna de Angelis Spiritist Society in California. So I'm going to read this message is from Renata Naumov. Hopefully I'm pronouncing close enough. If I'm not saying it correctly, Renata, I apologize. But she wrote to us and she says, Dear Mackenzie and Francisca, I just wanted to let you both know what a fantastic work you have done with your podcast on the book No Solar. Even though I was raised in a Spiritist family, I was just returning to it after almost 20 years when I started reading No Solar and listening to you. This was my first time reading this book, and your insights and discussions made my journey back to Spiritism so much smoother and exciting. I have positively changed so much in the past year, and you were part of it. Your observations and questions inspired me to reflect each day on my actions and my purpose in life. Obrigada, danke. Obrigada is thank you in Portuguese, and danke is thank you in German. I am Brazilian, and Francisca is German. So it is very uplifting to us, Renata, to receive your message, and we are the ones who need to thank you. Not only you, but everybody that's listening to us, everybody that's listening to Kardec Radio, because without you listening to it, we would have less people, right, learning together, creating this network of good thoughts, of this light that we are trying and making the effort to spread wherever Kardec Radio reaches in the world. So thank you for following us. I hope what we are doing here really it can really help you, can really help all of you that are listening to us right now, because, and I talked to Francisca a lot about this, it definitely helps us, right? It definitely helps us who are doing, who are studying, who are reading, and it is great for us to hear from you. So once again, as we keep repeating from time to time, if you want to send a message, please feel free to send us a note, be it on Facebook. Look for us at KardecRadio.com. You can go to KardecRadio.com and find there the contact page, and then you can send us email through there. Or on Facebook, I made a mistake, right? It's on Facebook, you can just look for Kardec Radio, and you will find us there, and you can give us a note, send us a note, give us a suggestion, ask us questions, and maybe if we know how to answer, we will certainly do. If we don't know, we'll ask some friends to maybe give the answers to you, to write back to you. So I hope you're enjoying, and let's go back to work, right? Work that never stops, chapter 39. So what happened was the day passed, they were helping, they were working, and the day was, night was finishing, right? And then Aniceto is there at the house, and the day is now starting to appear, right? The sun is starting to rise, and probably in a few minutes, Dona Isabel is going to raise and take the kids to school and so on. But while that doesn't happen, Aniceto is talking to a few other spirits there, and he's talking in a private manner, as Andre says. Why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? Because certain types of activities need to be talked about in a private manner. Maybe it's because it's a certain type of activity that is very sensitive, and not a lot of spirits should know about what they're doing to help this friend. Maybe some of the spirits there know the other spirits, and maybe this would cause a commotion, right? Because they would know what's going on and so on. He doesn't know exactly what it is. Andre doesn't know exactly what it is. But he says that it's the active combat against a large group of ignorant, discarnate spirits gathered together for evil purposes. So Aniceto is trying to help this group of spirits too, so that they don't go out and do what they are planning to do, or to try to convince them not to do that. And he was talking to other people, and Andre and Vicente go talk to different spirits and to see what they are actively doing. Like I said before, right? They are not there just to rest. They are there and they are working. And what is their work is to pay attention, to maybe one day be able to do the same when they are called to do that. The day is starting to appear, right? And he says that he had the feeling that the night's rain had swept away the darkness from the firmament. It is interesting, right? As if the waters are cleaning the environment and making the day a lighter day instead of that dark night, instead of all those showers, right, of all that pouring. And we talked about this a few chapters ago. And then Andre says that there was a large group of spirits, and he says that by the number of spirits who were there, he realized how important it was, how important that small place was for the work that they needed to do, which is very interesting because he finishes this paragraph by saying that this small place that nobody knows about is just a humble house. It's just one small home amongst a lot of other homes around town. But he says that is, and he says, so hidden from the eyes of the world, but how important that small home is. And it is that kind of work that sometimes we don't think about, right? We look at this God at Home that they are doing, or that harmonious family that they're building there, and we say, oh, it's just one more family. And what Andre is telling us is that it is not just one more family. It is a great group that, imagine if we had more of these around the world, even if they are small, and then we can think of how many of these small houses are there in the different communities around the world. There are that can become these workshops for the good spirits to come to their houses and actively do something there to help other spirits. As we said in one of our previous shows, are we transforming our own houses, our homes into workshops like this for the spiritual city or the spiritual colony that serves our town or our state? Because as Andrea will say later on, well, not Andrea, one of the ladies will say, after Andrea asks, are there many No Solar workshops like this one? And this lady tells him and tells us that there are. And then she says, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead because of the context of what we are talking about. She says that from what she's been told, there are quite a few of them in the corporeal realm. They represent other spirit colonies, not only here, but also in other cities of Brazil. Naturally, she is talking with Andre about the country that they live in. But we already discussed this, and Andre already says that, and we know when he goes to Poland, right, to visit the other country, or not when he goes, when the other spirits come from Poland, and they say that they are going to this different astral city or spiritual colony, spiritual city, and is it only No Solar? No, we know that there's Alvorada Nova. Here in the United States, that must be a lot of these spiritual cities, Germany, anywhere. It doesn't matter because they are all connected to the towns and the states and the countries that we live in. So when she says that there are lots of other spiritual colonies connected to this in other cities in Brazil, what she's actually trying to tell us and remind us, not to teach us, but to remind us, because we already knew this, that there are different cities like this, that there are cities like this in any part of the world. It doesn't matter if I'm here, if in the United States right now, if I am in Morocco, if I am in China, if I am in Afghanistan, it doesn't matter where I am. There will always be those cities because we know that we don't die. If we don't die and when the body stays behind, we will go. We're going to live, we're going to be helped in one of these cities that serve that area that we are living on at that specific moment. But even more important than that, I would say that what she is trying to teach us here is not only about the spiritual cities that are like No Solar, but about these workshops right here on Earth that are outfitted, right? They are responsible, they are indispensable, as she says, for outfitting us for the struggle. that helps the spirits, be it the discarnate ones, be it the incarnate ones, to get ready to fight for their own lives, to really go ahead and, independently of what they're fighting against, that they have the help, that they can find help, that they can find the good spirits to help them reach their goals. And if we think about them as us, right? Let's imagine I'm going through a struggle right now, be it a financial one, be it a spiritual one, whatever it is. Who wouldn't like to have a moral support, right? A person who could infuse in ourselves some hope, some more patience, right? Some more dignity, some more desire to work harder. Wouldn't it be awesome to have like a boost of energies? These workshops, like Dona Isabel's house, is one of these places where these spirits can invite us in so that we can be helped. On the other hand, wouldn't it be awesome if our home could be used as an outpost of a spiritual colony, so that within our houses we could have these good spirits working to help other spirits that are in need, that we could also as well be helped by these spirits who are visiting our homes, right? So it is very interesting for us to really, really think about this and think about our homes as a very small candle, right, that lights up at the night, right, at night, so that other good spirits can come and say, look, I see that small light. Let's go there, see if we can create inside there a hospital or maybe a school for spirits because of the environment that we already built within our house, right? It would be awesome for all of us. Hopefully, we already have that. And if we already have that, let's keep doing what we are doing the gospel at home, the God at home, reading good readings, trying to have a peaceful house, not only on the exterior but also on the interior, working hard to love one another, to like Dona Isabel does, right? Treat every kid or every person in our home with dignity, with respect, sometimes very seriously, sometimes in a more light way, but to make the environment a better place, like Dona Isabel's house that we've been presented so far to what she is doing. And naturally, why am I speaking about this? This woman who came to Andre and told after he asks her about these workshops like Dona Isabel's house, why is she saying that to him? Why is he asking this to her? And naturally, we know the story. We don't know her name, right? We just know that she is the mother of an incarnate woman named Dalva, which means a bright or whitish person, right? We call it in Portuguese would be when we say, for example, the white star here in the United States, we call it the Dalva star or the Estrela d'Alva. So it means that very bright star. So it's this woman who we don't know the name, that she died and her daughter is alone, and she's trying to help her, and she starts the conversation with Andre, telling Andre that she wants God to reward Sister Isabel, and asks God to grant Isabel, Dona Isabel, strength to endure the temptations on her pathway. Why is she doing that? And then she tells us the story. She tells us that her daughter, Dalva, is widowed, and that her mother, this woman, also died, and she is alone. So she is suffering, and unfortunately, for a while, she allowed herself to fall into the clutches of malevolent spirits. And what I find interesting on that specific talk about this woman is that she says that her daughter allowed herself, which is also a teaching for all of us. Right? We usually, when we talk about, let's say, obsessions or these bad spirits who try to get us and try to insist on bad ideas, and then they find way for us to do what they want us to do, what she is telling us here is that her daughter allowed herself to fall into those clutches. She is telling us, hey, it doesn't matter if the spirits are trying to make you do something. You are the one who needs to choose. You are the one who has to have the power, to control yourself, to do it or not to do it. Of course, that it takes time for us to practice in not doing something that we've been doing. But it is, in the end, our responsibility, right? So I always like to think about, for example, a person that's driving and it's drunk. The person could say, oh, I'm driving, but I'm driving because I am drunk. So I should not be at fault because I am driving. I am drunk. So no, it's actually you committed 2 crimes instead of 1. So instead of creating an excuse because you're saying that, oh, you didn't know what you were doing, so you were doing anyways, it is the same thing. A bad spirit comes to us, a person comes to us and tells us to do something wrong. The person will not be the main responsible for what I did. I will be the one responsible for doing it. It doesn't matter what the other one said. Maybe the other one will have its own responsibility, but my responsibility, it's my share. It's not the other one's share. So what this woman is telling us, hey, be careful, right? Don't allow yourself to fall into those traps. You really have to put your effort to do something. And then she tells us that she tried to approach her daughter, but she couldn't. Her efforts were useless because her mind, her daughter's mind, was absorbed in business and material complications, so she couldn't feel her influence. And what she is telling us here is that even if our parents, for example, who have discarnated, or our good spirits want to help us more effectively, sometimes they can't. Not because they are not trying to, but because sometimes we don't allow them to, because we don't open up the right doors and the right windows for them to come into contact with us and allow them to help ourselves. It is the same thing. If I'm trying to solve a problem, or if I'm having a problem and a person comes to try to help me, but I don't want to help, I don't want their help, they won't be able to help me. So what did she do? She needed to do something. And because she was not able to do so, she found this friend who brought her to this place, which now she knows and we know it's Sister Isabel's house. And there she got in touch with these groups of spirits who actively helped her to help her daughter. And Vicente asks, were you able to do so? Were you able to help her? And she says, thanks be to Jesus. Now I know my daughter has received my loving suggestions, and I am sure she will heed my requests. She will actively start to listen to what her mother wants her to do. And it is natural. When we read these things, maybe we think, oh, the problem is solved. From then on, she will never fall again. of course, this is not how it happens, because it happens in our lives as well. Sometimes we get a good advice, right? We go to a Spirit Center, hear the message, listen to a public talk, read a good book. We know what to do. We are hearing, we are reading, and then the opportunity comes, and then we don't practice again. We fall again. But that's the way we are. We've been falling, we've been practicing wrong things. We've been doing wrong for such a long time that for us it's much easier. So what she is telling us here is that at least right now, with the help of these good spirits at Dona Isabel's house, she is going to be able to talk to her daughter more frequently, and hopefully she will be able to help her more and more and more. And that's why when this happens, and we already talked about this one, Andre looks at her and says, "Hey, are there any more houses like this one? Are there any more No Solar workshops like this one?" And we already talked about, of course, there are, not only in Brazil, everywhere we go, and hopefully we can make our own homes, our own houses, our places of worship to become these structures, these spiritual structures that are able to receive good spirits, receive these workers to help not only ourselves, but help the spirits who are around town. And that's what, with this, we are brought to another conversation, because this woman leaves, there are two other spirits coming, and Andre and Vicente recognize them, and they say that they are leaving, and say, "Why are you leaving so soon?" And Andre is curious about it, right? We know how Andre is. He keeps repeating himself at all times. "Oh, we wanted to learn. I'm curious about your work. We want to learn. We want to have more knowledge," and so on and so forth. And maybe he wants to know why they are leaving. Are you going to rest? Are you going? And the spirits say, "No, we're going to work. Tonight there will be a gospel study, probably there again at Dona Isabel's house. And these two spirits need to go and grab good spirits. They are discarnated, ignorant, and suffering brothers and sisters who are capable of coming here, so that this gospel study can be helpful to those spirits." Andrea looks. Is there an actual job? Is there an actual work? And the spirit says, "Hey, that's what Jesus said, right? Jesus said centuries ago that the harvest is great. So we have lots of stuff to do. If we want to work, there's work for everybody at all times. Work is never lacking. What is lacking is our intention to work, is our will to go after work and to do something." So, like we said in the beginning, this chapter is all about work, and some parts about our unfortunate, sometimes laziness, or our lazy attitudes towards life. And he says, this spirit tells Andre that this place here that we are has been working, has been functioning non-stop for nearly 20 years. So it has been around 20 years at that time that this workshop of No Solar was working at that specific point. "Were you there since it started?" Andre asked. He said, and the spirit says, no. Some people come here, work for a few years, and they go forward, move to a different town, go learn a different service. And there are few spirits who are here since the beginning. We need to just keep moving, to learn different things, to find the best way that we can serve. This is a holy school, he says. It's always an active and holy school. And those who have a spirit of goodwill should not miss out on the chance to learn. And we just mentioned that Andrea keeps repeating this, but then it was this spirit who repeats it to us again, right? If I go to the Spirit Center, if I go to my church, what am I doing there? Right? Because at church, it is very few things. There are very few things that materially I can do to help others. If I'm not part of the work group of the Spirit Center, right? I go there, I sit, I watch what they're saying, I listen to what they're saying, hear the music, hear the message, If they had some snacks at the end, I eat some snacks, talk, have a pleasant conversation with our friends, and then we leave home. What did we go to do there? We went there to learn. And what do we do with what we learned? We practice. Where will we practice? Anywhere. Everywhere I go. In my work. In my school. Again, at the Spirit Center. At my home. Inside of myself. These are our holy schools. And if we have the spirit of goodwill, it doesn't matter if I'm not working physically, doing something. If I'm working with my mind to learn, but to actively learn, to really learn what I'm reading, this is work as well. And it will be even better if after learning, I can go out and practice. Andre then looks at him and says, "Oh, forgive me for asking so many questions. Every time I read these talks by Andre, it makes me laugh a little bit because he keeps repeating himself. It is as if he's really forgiving himself or asking for forgiveness for himself, because he is one of those persons that likes to ask questions, right? Oh, why? But why this? Oh, why did you do that? Why is this so important? And then he keeps asking and asking and asking. And that reminds me of a child, right? That when you do something and the child goes in, but why? Why? Are we already there? Why do bugs have 6 legs? Why does a spider have 8 legs? Why is the sky blue? Why are clouds white and sometimes gray? And why and why and why, and all the time, all these whys. So Andre is like this sponge that wants to get more knowledge. Hopefully you are interested in what the questions that he is asking, that Vicente is also asking, so that we can learn more. And hopefully, like we said, that we can practice more as well. But I have to say that sometimes Andre asks some questions that are so, are so basic that sometimes it apparently is a question that didn't need to be asked. But didn't it really need to be asked? Because he asks right now, at this thing that we are talking now, he asks if these 2 spirits are the only ones with the skills needed for recruiting those who are ignorant and suffering. And to me, it's a question the answer is obviously no. Of course there aren't only these 2 spirits with those skills. But why? And that's my question. Why is he asking this question? Why is he worried if there are only these 2 spirits to get the ignorant and suffering spirits to be helped? I assume, and this is my perception of this, sometimes we get to a spirit center, for example, right? And then we see a medium, or we see a person that's giving a public talk, or we see a person that's serving the snacks, serving lunch, or serving dinner after our meetings. Or we see a person that's, I don't know, let's say, taking care of all the media, right? Taking care of the computers, of the projectors, whatever the activity is, right? And then we sit, we watch the meeting, we listen to what they're saying, and then we say, oh, these workers here, they all do everything already, so there's no need of more workers here. So this question by Andre, it is, to me, it sounds like this person who just got to Spirit Center and thinks sometimes that everything is working, that the person that's just got there, oh, I don't need to offer myself. I don't need to offer myself for work because, everything is running so smoothly. Everybody has their own duties, and there's no more work at the Spirit Center right now. So why bother, right? These 2 people, we already have all the mediums that the house needs. We already have all the people that take care of the kids when there are public talks for adults, or that they're giving the gospel lessons for the kids at the Spirit Center. And naturally, this is not true. when we look at the Spirit Center, when we look at a church, and we see people working, if we really want to help, there will always be room for more workers. There will always be room for more workers. So if we want and if we like the kind of work that these two spirits are doing, we could learn to do what they're doing and offer ourselves to help them. So if I'm good at computers, why not offer myself to work and help the guy who's taking care of the computers of the Spirit Center? Or if I like books, why don't I offer myself to take care of the library? Or if I like to clean houses, if I like the cleaning part, why don't I offer myself to clean the Spirit Center at the weekends, for example? Why? And we can find all kinds of jobs. Naturally, some of them are more specific. It needs more time for you to get accustomed to it, and then one day you will be able to really help on that specific function. But there are many other jobs in the Spirit Center that you can go and ask if help is needed, and I'm pretty sure that you will be able to find a place at the Spirit Center that you're going to that you can help. See, for example, Vanessa one day came to Francisca and said, can you put a podcast, a radio show about the book for Kardec Radio? And Francisca said yes. She invited me. I said yes, and here we are, almost 3 years later, doing one show a week, and I'm glad that you're there listening to us. Now at Kardec Radio, we have shows every single day of the week, from Monday to Monday. Every day we have a show. You can just go kardecradio.com and you'll find the lineup for all the shows. How do we have all these people? Oh, it's not because they just sprouted from the ground and then decided to do. No, maybe they were available. Maybe they talked to Vanessa. Maybe Vanessa invited them. But if we don't know that you are out there, how can we do something without you saying that you can do something, correct? So what Andre is asking here for us is, look, I can help. And that's what these two friends, and now we know their names, Ildegardo and Vieira, they said, no, we are only responsible for few blocks in the city. There are many, many co-workers in this line of help. And I bet he would say, and if you want to help, we would really appreciate your help right now. So I hope that you understand that this is an invitation, not for work at Kardec Radio, but for you, for me, for everybody, for anybody who is listening to us right now, to really think about being a volunteer at the Spirit Center. If you don't find to be a good place to work for any kind of reason, you just like to go there to listen to what they're saying, volunteer yourself to work at a hospital, at an, at any place that needs help, at an elderly place, right, that takes care of the elderly. There are so many places that can use your hands, can use your skills, right, to improve the help, to improve the life of so many people around the world. It doesn't matter where you are, be it here in the United States, be it in Brazil, be it in Uganda, wherever it is. There's always room for those with goodwill to go after and to help. But then we go to this part where we're going to talk a little bit about this laziness, right? The lazy spirits. Why is this conversation brought on after all that we talked about work? Is because we need to be aware, right? We need to be aware, and we need to be watching and taking very much care of what kinds of help we are trying to provide, to what kind of spirits we are trying to provide help. Why? Well, we already read the story, so we know that Vieira and Ildegardo brought the other night two spirits that were not helpful, were not suited for the type of help that they provide at that specific place. And their supervisor looks at them and say, look, you need to be more careful. So let's imagine, for example, we are in a group that gets a lot of people together, and we sit in a circle and we start talking to each other, right? To hear each other's problems, to try to learn with each other, try to take lessons from one, and one learn from the lessons of the other, and so on and so forth. But then we bring two people, and this is not the story here, but it's a similar story so that we can have a better idea, a better understanding of what this spirit is trying to tell us through Vieira and Hildegardo's story. And then in that circle, we bring two people. They are completely stoned. They had some drugs, and they are completely drugged. All of a sudden, our conversation will not be helpful to a lot of people. Why? Because there will basically be no conversation. Those people who had used drugs, be it alcohol and they are very, very drunk, for example, or be because they used any other types of drugs, and they become aggressive, or they start speaking too loud, they start screaming, they start to act violently. These two people will disturb the whole meeting, and the purpose of the meeting will not be achieved. And those spirits, those people who are there, they are not prepared to deal with this kind of situation. So instead of us helping those two spirits, those two people, we would be not only not helping them, but maybe we could make the situation even worse, because we would not be charitable to them. We would not be willing to love them because they would be violent towards us. There can be a learning process in this. Naturally, it can be a learning process. But this, we have to understand, would not be the right place nor the right time to bring two drunken people to a meeting where the idea of the meeting is that we are sober to talk with each other so that we learn with each other's experiences. It's not a place to treat people who are clearly drugged, who are clearly drunken. Who could treat those people? Then we would need to bring those two people to the right place, maybe to a hospital where the nurses, the doctors could do something to them, but not to a meeting where the purpose of the meeting is to talk, is to have a conversation, a sober conversation. What the Spirit is telling Hildegardo and Vieira is that these kinds of spirits have their own place to be treated, not this place that we are now. It's not because I know them that I can bring them. Even more, if I know them, I should know that they would not be the perfect fitting for this type of meeting. And then he says, and I quote here, "We cannot waste time on sneering and lazy spirits, nor on those who come here with certain intentions of a lower nature." So it is very important, very, very important to us that we pay attention to what kinds of meetings we are bringing the certain types of people with certain difficulties. Because if we don't have the right apparatus, the right type of people, the right group of people that know how to deal with those situations, those spirits, those sneering spirits, those lazy spirits who don't want to work, who only want to laugh at the face of the other, want to play jokes and say things of a lower nature just to disrupt the whole work. We cannot waste the time of the group to do this. It is for us to say that we shouldn't help them. No, it's not that. And that's what this Spirit tells us. He says, this is not a lack of charity. It's an understanding of duty. We have our duties, specific duties and general duties. Like I was saying, let's say we have a group in a Spiritist center or in a community center that one night is for help with, let's say, people who abuse alcohol. The other night is a group of people that abuse of another type of drug. Why would I bring a person that abuses of alcohol to the group that abuses a different substance, or the other way around? This will just cause something that is not ready. I can bring them, but my duty that night of alcoholics is to bring people that have that problem. On the other night, our duty is to take care of the other kind of people who have the other kind of problem. This needs to be our understanding of duty. We can do it ourselves. We can help those people privately. But if the group has a specific type of line of work, that's the type of people that should be helped at that specific time. So let's say I bring a person who is 30 years old to learn at a gospel study for kids. It's not the right place nor the right time. We can bring the person to a starter group of studying Spiritism, but of people around her age or his age, of adults, because the teachings will be more suited for his age, not a group of study for children of 3, 4, 5 years old. So it's a matter of really simple understanding of what is our duty. My personal duty may be something, but the group duty may be something else. That's why this Spirit came to Vieira and Hildegardo to tell them, look, I know that you love those spirits that you brought. I know that these are, and Hildegardo and Vieira will say, right? Vieira will tell us that these discarnate spirits who came, that they brought, were relatives of him. And that's why he brought them, because he knows them. But unfortunately, they are the ones who shouldn't have brought these relatives to the meeting, because they are ones who were not prepared for serious reflection. They were lazy spirits, didn't want to work, didn't want to change, didn't want to be helped. So when they were in the middle of the conversation of the gospel study, these two spirits, as Vieira tells us, tried to take over Sister Isabel's mediumistic faculties so that they could transmit a message of less uplifting content. So the meeting was disturbed by those spirits who were not there for learning. They were there and they didn't want to be there. They should not have been there. And what the Spirit, the supervisor of Vieira and Hildegardo, wants to tell them and tell us is, look, I know that you love those spirits, but they are not ready. And if they are ready, is not for this type of meeting. So you should have, or you should be more careful of what kinds of spirits you are bringing to us, because we will not be able to help them here, because this is not the right type of meeting for them, and they will disturb the meeting, and the meeting will not be as productive as it could have been with a different type of spirit that could have been brought here. So it is important for us to really understand this. One more thing that I'd like to say before we go to a closing on this topic is, hopefully we are not those kinds of spirits, the sneering and lazy spirits. Hopefully we are already working to become a hard worker, not only in the Spiritist center physically, but as well as in the spiritual side of life. When we are sleeping, maybe we can once a week, twice a week, be part of a group of spirits who are learning on the spiritual realm and who are trying to to be active, to be proactive in doing something, and not to become another lazy spirit to waste time in our own existence. The other thing that I'd like to mention here is that if we are in a position of being a supervisor, for example, we have to understand of what this supervisor just did. And we have to know that sometimes, even though it can be hard, even though it can be tough, we will need to talk to some people who made some mistakes, just like Hildegardo and Vieira did, right? But what is very, very important, and what Andre tells us is, and I'm going to quote what he says, because it is very important the way that the supervisor talked to Vieira and Hildegardo. So Andre says this, right after the supervisor finishes what he's saying. Andre says, Vieira and his colleague became very pale and didn't say a word. And they will say later on that they've been justly admonished. So they recognized that the admonishment was valid, that they committed a mistake, and that probably they will make an effort to not commit the same mistake later on. But going back to the point that I want to make here is that Andre, what he talks about the supervisor is when their calm and alert guide left. Calm and alert. So he is not angry. He is not screaming. He is not blaming the others. This supervisor, this guide, is calm and alert. Is alert because he is paying attention to what's going on. They probably didn't mention anything when it happened during the meeting. They all tried to solve the problem without blaming anybody when the problem was happening. After the fact, the supervisor, after solving everything, came to those two who were responsible, who had the duty of being watchful, of being alert, of being more careful to what type of spirits they would bring. So the supervisor, the guide, went to them and spoke to them privately or in a more reserved way, with calmness, with love in his words, not as if he is a superior one, as if he is always right. No, it's the type of talk that we need to practice, right? We need to show, look, this is what happens when we don't pay attention on what we are doing, when we allow ourselves to not think enough about what we are doing, and we just allow ourselves to go with our emotions without thinking on the consequences of what we are doing. So if we are responsible for something, we need to take responsibility for what it is. And that's what Hildegardo and Vieira understood. They made a mistake. And right after being admonished, they said it was just. This was fair. Right? They didn't. The guy didn't come to talk to us and say something that we didn't do. No, this was fair. He is right, and we need to really pay more attention in what we are doing. The same way if we are cleaning the house, the same way if we are cleaning the Spiritist Center, the same way if we are talking at the Spiritist Center, what comes out of my mouth is my responsibility. If I say something that's against Spiritism, it's not Spiritism that's saying it. A person that studies will go back to the books and will say, oh, Mackenzie, you committed a mistake. You said something that is not right. And I have to admit that I made a mistake. And I will correct myself and try to improve next time. This should not be so hard. But it is very hard for us. Why? Most of the times because we are so proud, because we still are so vain, because it's hard for us to forgive a person, it's hard for us to be a better spirit. So hopefully this admonishment coming from the guide that takes control, that supervises that work, also serves for us to think about our positions. If we are a supervisor, how to act when something like that happens. If we are not the supervisor and we are being admonished, how to behave when we are admonished. So it's both ways. We need to really put ourselves, because sometimes I will be the supervisor for a work, and at the same night I can be the person who has a supervisor, and one made a mistake, I made a mistake, my supervisor can come to me, and the one that I supervise made a mistake, I will need to go to them. How do I behave in those situations? It's up to us. This is, on this chapter, a very good example of how should we try and make an effort to behave, being a supervisor or being the one who are being supervised. And Vicente says, close to the end, oh, what a lesson. Hopefully it's a lesson for you that are listening now, because it is certainly a very big lesson for myself. I still need to learn more and more about this supervisor and being supervised. So at the end, Vieira, resigned, tells us, here we must not misuse love like we do in the corporeal realm. No one is forbidden to help, to want the good, to intercede. No one. We can go, we can help, we can want the good for the other person. We can all assist those we love with the resources that are appropriate, he continues. But the word duty has a positive, a constructive meaning here for those who wish to walk sincerely toward God. So everything that we do needs to have this positive meaning. It has to have this constructive meaning. My duty is not to bring everyone to the Spiritist Center. My duty, our duty, is to bring love to everyone, but from within, not to force our love on the others, not to force what we believe on the others. But if they want, if they are willing to receive the type of help that I can give, I can go and give. If they are not willing, a prayer will suffice. So we should go and help. We should go and work. We should all have our own duties. But if we want to be walking sincerely toward God, these duties that I assume need to have these constructive meanings behind it, so that we are all part of the creators, the co-creators of the universe that we are living in. So I would like to thank you for being here up to this moment with us, helping us to create a better world for ourselves. And hopefully you will come back next week for another chapter of the Messengers in Our Home, when we will, together with Andre, together with Vicente, together with Aniceto, head to the countryside on chapter 40. Have a great week, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.